without overlaps and avoiding unnecessary costs and burdens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our discussion was presaged by an excellent paper presented for discussion by the UNDP in consultation with the co-chairs. The papers explored a rights-based approach anchored on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and other international rights covenants. It discussed the scope of public services and welfare and their relationship to harnessing the development potential of migrants and growth within host communities. It discussed current global trends such as uncontrolled urbanization and social tensions in resource-challenged communities with respect to the provision of services. It touched on the need to change the negative narrative of positive urban citizenship where migrants are seen as contributors to development. And finally, realizing that sustainability is a key to facilitating protection, integration, and inclusion under Objective 15, among others, of the GCM. During the panel discussion, several good practices were presented. On the need to build resources and capacity, Ethiopia shared the positive outcomes of their Diaspora Trust Fund, where their communities abroad have the opportunity to contribute towards the provision of services for marginalized communities. On policy formulation, Spain shared their 4 principles of migration. 1, that it is a fact that needs to be managed well. 2, that action should be considered in the short and long term. 3, that migration is a complex issue that we must tackle in a multidimensional way. And 4, that we must apply a human rights approach with inclusion and integration as objectives. The representative of Mexico also shared that for their government, migrants' rights are rooted in their constitution. On the program design and policy implementation, there was an across-the-board agreement on the need for consultation and engagement with all relevant stakeholders, national, local, municipal levels of government, the private sector, civil society organizations, sectoral commissions, trade unions, as the case may be, and the migrant communities themselves, to make implementation effective and efficient. On the need to have accurate data to formulate policy and implement programs, Mexico and Thailand shared that they are registering the population regardless of status to provide access to services. Thailand in particular is reaching out to assure irregular migrants that documentation will not result in penalties. Meanwhile, San Francisco provided an example of how effective civil society organizations can be through advocacy. Information was shared on how San Francisco is providing protections as a sanctuary city by crafting legal frameworks that embody its intention to be and remain a city of inclusion. On the topic of integration, an official from Morocco's Ministry of Religious Affairs described the positive impact of providing Islamic guides where the Moroccan diaspora live to facilitate integration in their new communities. This program may also be considered by other faith-based organizations. The platform provided by the GFMD and the UN Migration Network, among others, in facilitating the global and multidimensional discourse and work towards national implementation was identified as an asset. The implementation of the GCM, it was discussed, has to take into account local specifics that must include consultation and involvement with local communities. In line with the SDGs and with the GCM, it was felt that we must remain mindful that central to the success of the implementation of our ambitious objectives is the involvement of migrant and host local communities at the center of public policy for migrant issues. Let me end with a quote from one of our participants at the forum yesterday on the importance of engagement with migrant and local host communities in this process. Quote, "What you do for me, without me, you do against me."
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The special session on the future of the forum was formally opened by the Moroccan and German GFMD co-chairs. In his opening remarks, Mr. Nadir highlighted the main activities of the 2018 GFMD, namely thematic workshops, preparatory meetings of the support of the steering group and the Friends of the Forum, 2 working groups on the GCM and the 2030 agenda, as well as on communications, and then close partnership with the mayors of cities, as well as the conduct and review of the GFMD 10-year review. In her remarks, Madame Louise Arbour, UN SRSG for International Migration, stated that the GFMD should position itself strategically in relation to the implementation, review, and conclusion of the GCM. Mrs. Arbour said we could look at considering low-hanging fruits in terms of what we should focus on, and these are the items that can be delivered on a short-term basis, like, for example, data collection versus long-term deliverables, like the addressing drivers of migration. She said the UN Migration Network is poised to support member states in the implementation of the GCM and is very keen to have the GFMD as an important partner. The linkage between the GFMD and the UN will now be conducted not through to the SRSG, but through the UN Migration Network. This relationship needs further and deeper conversations. For his part, Mr. Antonio Vettorino, Director General of the IOM, elaborated on the value added of the GFMD and the possible areas for partnership and cooperation between the GFMD and the IOM in the implementation, follow-up, and review of the GCM. He exuded optimism on the huge potential of this partnership in advancing the GCM. He also said that the GFMD's flexibility is an enormous asset in furthering the partnership between the GFMD and the UN Migration Network, which will be responsible in the implementation of the GCM. Regarding the link between the GFMD support unit and the IOM, he reminded us that IOM already hosts the GFMD support unit at its headquarters in Geneva. However, he made it very clear that the IOM would welcome bringing the support unit closer to provide administrative and substantive support. The co-chairs of the GFMD 10-year review presented the findings, conclusions, and recommendations of the report. The findings underscored what member states believe are the main strengths as well as the perceived weaknesses of the GFMD. The conclusions pointed to the GFMD as the engine of progress on migration and development. It has a catalytic role to play in GCM implementation. It also envisions a GFMD built on 3 pillars: policy, partnership, and peer review, animated by the 5 engines of growth, namely mainstreaming data and knowledge, supporting a whole-of-government approach, promoting decentralization of GFMD activities, mobilizing collective action, and improving interaction at the summits. The report made very specific recommendations on how to deepen policy dialogue, how to facilitate multi-stakeholder partnerships through an energized GFMD marketplace and the replication of the migration lab, as well as through a reorient platform for partnerships. Finally, the report also made recommendations on how to strengthen the operating modalities, including how to further strengthen the GFMD support unit, as well as provide specific measures on how to make the financing of the GFMD predictable and sustainable. During the open forum, many delegates took the floor to express their strong preference that the GFMD continue in its current informal, inclusive, multi-stakeholder, and non-binding character. Many states said that the global migration community would not have been able to achieve the successes of the GCN without the GFMD. At the same time, governments expressed their view for the global forum to exist beyond the GCM and to carry out its own objectives. Some governments in our session expressed that they see the added value of the multi-stakeholder partnership, including academia, and many governments said they would like to welcome a regional and or sub-regional approach to further decentralize the forum. With respect to implementation, governments would like to see the GFMD to continue providing a forum for governments to convene and engage in dialogue on migration and development. Finally, governments said they would like to see the GFMD play an important role in the implementation of the GCM. That concludes my report. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Conejos.
It is an honor for me to speak today on behalf of the GFMD Support Unit, which has played a direct role in the development and administration of this platform for partnerships, a mechanism that we established in 2010 in order to provide a space for the exchange of knowledge and facilitate partnerships, and provide more impetus for governments and GFMD stakeholders to discuss and present concrete projects, initiatives, and ideas that relate to GFMD outcomes and recommendations. Our role through the years has been to organize as well the annual special session on the platform for partnerships. Traditionally, the special session on the platform for partnerships is co-hosted by the outgoing and incoming GFMD chairs to signal continuity. Today's session was co-chaired by Ambassador Alfonso Morales, Undersecretary for International Protection, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ecuador, and Mr. Jawad Akiek, Director of Cooperation from the Government of Morocco. To date, the special session in the past 8 GFMD summits have featured almost 40 state-led initiatives on issues concerning remittances, diaspora engagement, protection of migrant workers, and other cross-cutting aspects of migration and development. Most of these initiatives have been implemented at various governance levels and have pioneered the best models of multi-stakeholder partnerships and cooperation. For the first time, the PFP session today has opened the doors to the civil society and private sector participants, thanks to the Moroccan GFMD chair, to further leverage multi-stakeholder partnerships within and beyond the UN. Ladies and gentlemen, the internationally negotiated and agreed outcome of the GCM, released on July 13, recognizes the platform for partnerships as a building block of the proposed UN capacity building mechanism to support the GCM implementation. The GFMD 10-year review also affirms the added value of the GFMD in offering networking opportunities, facilitating partnerships, and acquiring knowledge. Against this backdrop, we began today's session with a presentation of a proposal to revive the GFMD marketplace, first introduced in Belgium in 2007. Ambassador Regine de Klerk, first GFMD chair, with my assistance, articulated Ecuador's vision for the PFP to offer a matchmaking mechanism between those stakeholders facing specific policy and practice concern and those that can provide targeted solutions. The idea for such a marketplace is for governments to identify capacity building needs and submit corresponding requests for policy and program support to the GFMD. The GFMD, through the support unit, which would act as a facilitator, connector, and communicator, will then review the requests and proposals for matchmaking and identification of potential partners that may offer technical assistance and policy advice. These may take place during the GFMD preparatory meetings, thematic workshops, and in the online PFP. The outcomes can then be featured at the PFP special session, feeding into the development of the UN capacity building mechanism of the GCM. Turning now to the other presentations, let me highlight the following. The first presentation, Overseas Development Institute and Switzerland presented an interactive online tool aimed at better understanding the impact of migration on the achievement of all 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and equally, the impact these achievements will have on future migration patterns. In the second presentation, jointly made by the government of Bangladesh, the Platform on Disaster Displacement, IOM and UNHR, they explored how to enhance action and scale up commitment and partnership with regard to addressing displacement and other forms of human mobility in the context of disasters, environmental degradation, and the adverse effects of climate change. The third presentation was jointly made in an effort to provide comprehensive and coordinated global guidance in the area of bilateral agreements, labor agreements. This was led by ILO and IOM with the support of the government of Sweden, and they partnered on a study on bilateral labor agreements in African Union member states. The fourth presentation was made by the European Commission and International Food and Agriculture Development, and they presented a new 15 million euro program called PRIME, Platform for Remittances, Investments, and Migrants Entrepreneurship, aimed at reducing the cost of remittances and maximizing their impact for development in Africa, thereby responding to both Objective 20 of the GCM and the achievement of the Target 10.C of the 2030 SDGs. The last presentation was about the African Cities Initiative on Migration, jointly presented by UNESCO Morocco, the National Human Rights Council, and the United Cities and Local Governments of Africa. This presentation aims to support local authorities, municipal authorities in particular, in the implementation of social inclusion policies for people on the move. I cannot possibly give justice to the rich presentations that have been made this morning, but the support unit would be happy to put you in touch for those who are interested to learn more about this. And we would, of course, circulate the background information and other references that the presenters have shared with us. Now, just by a last note, as we enter into the era of GCM implementation, further reflection would be needed on how the GFMD platform for partnerships can be further developed and practically situate itself in the proposed UN capacity building mechanism, and how the GFMD can establish close working relationship with the UN Migration Network. This will allow the Global Forum to effectively contribute and concretize its accorded role in the implementation, follow-up, and review of the GCM. I would like to close by thanking the government that have supported the PFP through the years, particularly Switzerland, that has provided funding for its periodic development, and also for all the presenters of those 40 state-led initiatives, and of course the chairs that have supported this initiative through the years. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, merci beaucoup.